It's one of those little buttons you have to push over here, I guess. Okay. So we'll start from left to right, please.
Earl Herzog.
Dave Reynolds.
And Richard Jevitt. And what we do is we do not need the alternate today, but I'd like if he would just sit in and just kind of watch for the proceedings. At first, right now we have an opening for a hearing of residents, which will be for about 3 minutes. And I've taken a look at, we do have 2 people that have registered to speak tonight. I'd just like to find out if those are for the, the item that is on the agenda, if that's what that's for. If it is, then what I'd like to do is hold that off, and you'll be allowed during the public hearing to approach and discuss that issue. Is that all right? Okay, thank you. Okay. First item on the agenda is the minutes from the July 8th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at that, please?
Chairman, if nobody has any objections, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of July.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Herzog and a second from Mr. McElroy. Any questions, comments? Okay. Can we have a vote?
Aye.
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 And aye. So the motion passes, minutes are passed. All right. The item that is on the agenda today is listed as a public hearing item. Now, what that will mean is that first we will have staff present the item. After the item is presented by staff, then we will open this up for public hearing that'll be able to, for anyone to speak on that particular agenda. Questions and information and will be made after the public hearing is heard. All right, at this time, I would call the staff. Emily, if you would mind. Please. I'm sorry. Okay, the item in question is BOA 2019-002, a request for a variance to UDC Section 2198A fences and screening in residential areas in order to allow a fence in the front yard that exceeds the maximum height allowable and is constructed of opaque material located at 4709 Shady Lane in the city of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Emily Delgado, Senior Planner with the Planning Division, and then this is Gil Durant, our Chief Building Official on the inspection side. So just to get your bearings, the subject property in question tonight is 4709 Shady Lane, which is located here in the Live Oak Hills subdivision. This is Carolina Crossing, so Live Oak Hills, Carolina Crossing, Schertz Parkway. And it's kind of zoomed out, so really to get your bearings here, so the subject property 4709, and then the applicant, Mr. Tim Clark, this is his residential property at 3673 Diamond Falls. And then the other thing I want to note on this is all of the purple starred properties are actually owned by the city of Schertz. So you will see that the subject property is immediately adjacent to the applicant's residential property and also city of Schertz. On October 7th, 17 mailed 200-foot notice mailers went out. At this time, we have not received any responses in favor, opposed, or neutral to. On October 9th, there was a newspaper notice as well. And then to get the background of kind of why we're here tonight. So a fence permit was submitted by Cam's Custom Construction on behalf of Tim Clark. You can see that permit to the left of your screen. Mr. Clark's residential address is 3673 Diamond Falls, which was used on the application, and it was indicated that 250 linear feet of privacy fence was requested. So that's just what's highlighted in the red boxes. A fence permit was issued on July 31st and paid for on August 1st for 3673 Diamond Falls for that fence permit. This is one of the exhibits that was submitted with the fence permit application. Once again, it indicates 3673, although the height of the fence is not indicated nor the location of the fence. And you'll see that on this exhibit, this next one, and the next one. So we can determine the 250 linear feet, but we don't know how high the fence is or where it's actually proposed on the property. This is another exhibit that was submitted with the building permit application. It is a survey for Lot 18, Block 50 of the Live Oak Hills subdivision, which does identify the property is off Shady Lane and is actually for the 4709 Shady Lane property that is requesting this variance. So once again, background, what has occurred. It was brought to staff's attention that a fence was being constructed on 4709 Shady Lane, and then within the Live Oak Hills subdivision rather than the 3673 Diamond Falls. And it was determined that the permit that was issued for 3673 Diamond Falls was actually intended for that fence that was being constructed on 4709. During the staff investigation of the permit, it was determined that the fence permit was issued in error based on the incorrect address provided. And then during a routine inspection of the fence and the surrounding property, it was determined that a 6-foot fence was constructed along the property line of 4709 in the actual front yard. It's a 6-foot high privacy fence. Based on the exhibit submitted with the building permit, the proposed fence height and location could not be determined, and Gil had a conversation with Cam's Custom Construction that did get the confirmation that the fence being constructed, the 6-foot high fence on 4709, was actually what was submitted for 3673 Diamond Falls on that fence permit that Cam's Custom submitted. So ultimately, a 6-foot high solid wood privacy fence was constructed at 4709 Shady Lane. The purpose of that said fence is to actually extend the applicant's residential home backyard. So they would extend their residential property with the property behind them that they own to just have a larger backyard. Ultimately, Cam's Custom Construction, the building permit that application that was submitted had the incorrect address and did not identify the height of the fence or where it was proposed on the property, but they did include the survey for the correct property. However, inspection staff did not identify the address difference between the address on the application and the submitted survey, and did not verify the height of the fence or the location.
Why is the variance needed? Per the UDC under Article 9, no fence, screen, or wall within the required front setback shall exceed 4 feet in height. Fences constructed in the front yard shall be of non-opaque material. Because the fence is of 6-foot height and is of an opaque material, therefore it would be in violation of this section. Based on the UDC, the constructed 6-foot wooden fence in the front yard is in violation due to the constructed materials exceeding the 4-foot and it being of an opaque type material. The requested variance is to allow for the constructed fence to remain as is with no alterations based on the issued permit. The requested variance does not violate the intent of the UDC. Based on the properties of the conditions being adjacent to an undeveloped property with no current city services, water, sewer, and also being located at the terminus of Shady Lane, a non-constructed street, and being located directly adjacent to Tim Clark's residential property, the construction fence height and the materials poses no significant impact on the adjacent undeveloped properties. Are there any special conditions or physical features that are particular to the property, not applicable to other R2 or properties within the R2? There are no special conditions. The subject property is at the terminus of Shady Lane and directly adjacent to the rear of Tim Clark's residential property and to the city of Schertz owned properties. Thank you. Is the hardship the result of the applicant's own actions or intended for financial interest? The hardship is partially the result of the applicant's own actions. However, Cam's Custom did err in submitting the application, and there was an error created by staff and by not reviewing it more thoroughly and catching the location as being a different property. The fence was then constructed, which it is constructed right now, with the approved permit, and was later determined to be in violation due to the oversight by staff. If city staff had corrected the permit address and determined that the proposed fence was to exceed the maximum height in the front yard, and to be of an opaque material before the permit was issued, there would be no hardship nor the need for a variance to allow for the excess height and for the material allowance for the front yard. Our recommendation is that we approve the requested variance to allow for the front yard fence to exceed 4 foot in height and to be in an opaque material. In our opinion, that the requested variance complies with the criteria for granting such a variance as presented above. Additionally, based on the subject property's location and the surrounding properties, allowing the 6 foot high fence poses minimal or no impact to the adjacent properties.
Okay, thank you very much for staff. All right, at this time, we will open this up for public hearing. And the Board of Adjustment will hold a public hearing related to variance requests within this agenda. The public hearing will be open to receive a report from the staff, the applicants, the adjoining property owners affected by the applicant's request, and any other interested persons. Upon completion, the public hearing will be closed. The board will discuss and consider the application and may request additional information from staff or the applicant if required. After the deliberation, the board will act on the applicant's request. At this point, what we will do is we will limit the time for each person speaking at this public hearing to 3 minutes. If it requires a little bit of additional time, we'll take a look at that. So I am now going to open this up for public hearing. And if you wouldn't mind, when you come up, please state your name and address so they will be able to put the information down on their records. Okay. I think, is it Mr. Tim Clark?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, as city staff indicated, I'm Tim Clark. I'm the homeowner that's requesting the variance. I just wanted to come this evening and thank you all for having the opportunity to have that presented to you. Obviously, I'm in favor of the variance being granted. My family and I, in attendance tonight, just moved to Schertz this past year. We spent 20 years prior to that in Live Oak, so we're looking to stay. And as staff indicated, we're looking to just extend our backyard for additional backyard area for the family and the kiddos to enjoy a little quiet and peace. I've got photos, if you care to look at them, of the fence that's constructed. I know there weren't any in your presentation, but I've got them if you care to look at those. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe is it Tom Floyd? Again, please state your name and address for this.
Tom Floyd. My address is 3665 Diamond Falls. I live one house over from Mr. Clark. He's one of my neighbors. First of all, I just wanted to say that his fence poses no problem for me. It's not unsightly at all. It's well done, professionally done. And I know, I have a question that is cogent to this particular discussion, and if it needs to be done privately or at another venue, that's okay too. Just tell me. But the area immediately behind his home and mine, he was able to purchase the property that's immediately behind his. I think it's that address there where the permit should have been, did you say? Sure, that would be great. Could you highlight where my house is? I'm on the other side. No. Yeah, so right there. That's, yes, I'm 3665. That's my residence right there. Are you Ms. Delgado? Where Ms. Delgado has the cursor right now. And I assume that undeveloped property back there, most of that still belongs to the city, am I correct? the 3 lots that run behind my property and the next 2 neighbors going that way, down Diamond Falls, the fences there are in no way even close to what Tim's fence is. I mean, they're made of hog wire, and they don't even, the posts are not even cut off. They're still 8 feet above the ground. And there's all kinds of debris, and it looks like a junkyard back there. And I just wondered why the city code allowed that and then had a problem with this fence. Oh, okay. I just wondered why the city had a problem with his fence, and no one has a problem with what's directly behind me. And that's the whole purpose of his fence, was to screen that off from his view. And there's an old truck parked back there. There's been a variety of trailers parked back there. People were living in them when we first moved there. I understand they're not now, but there's an unattached carport that's made of, I guess, reclaimed corrugated metal and fence panels back there. And that is what I would call the front yard. If the further, I guess that's north, the street that, what is that street? Where Mr. Clark's, Shady Lane. On the north side of Shady Lane, where the rest of the city property is, that's the front yard, I assume. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be the front yard of those properties?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why would it be okay to have an unattached carport there with, it's not attached to any dwelling? And there's just some fences thrown up, and there's old golf carts, bicycles, all kinds of stuff. I can see it from my deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty curious. So that's all I had to say. As far as Mr. Clark's fence, I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, it's well done and it poses no problem for me. But I just found it curious that he needed a variance for that, and no one else needed anything for what's behind me.
Thank you very much.
Perhaps someone could tell me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak on this particular issue? Okay, if there's no one else, we will close the public hearing. And at this time, what we will do is do questions to staff and applicant for the particular variance that is in front of us. Any questions from the committee?
I have a question. Is this fence,
Mr. Herzog?
is this fence that's around this property, it's already up?
Yes, it has been constructed.
Okay, and it's around the whole lot, right?
So it is,
Do you have any pictures?
I do not have a picture of it from an aerial view because it's brand new, so I don't have an aerial view of it. But, so to get your bearings. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Kind of glare, but. You can see that it's a 6-foot-high wood privacy fence. Looks like pretty standard construction. But to answer your question where it's at, so this is Mr. Clark's personal property right now, his residential property, and the fence is located on these 3 property lines. And I can go back to the pictures if you'd like to see them again.
Well, I have a comment to make. Just, this area back there has been an unknown area for some time. I see some changes since the last time I was familiar with it. was that the city of Schertz has purchased or obtained some of these lots around there. But what's gonna happen back there in the future, I don't know, and maybe getting one area cleaned up in there is a benefit with the fence and everything. So I have no objections to it.
Just a real quick question. In terms of getting the approval, when the original request came in, the company that gave it to you under the wrong address. Is that correct?
That is correct. So
Was that checked to see?
So it was not caught by staff that the survey that you're looking at right here was different than the address that was submitted on the application. So the survey that they've sent with the building permit shows Live Oak Hills, Shady Lane, and then this is the actual building permit application that was submitted under 3673 Diamond Falls.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Just very briefly, city would have approved this had the address been correct?
No. So if the address would have been correct, using our strict UDC regulations, this is the front yard of this property. So if a fence was in this area here, it would have to be 4 feet and non-opaque.
Okay, and that's the only part of this
Every-
application that would have violated the UDC?
Correct.
Just going a little aside from this, would this create a precedence for something going forward?
I would say no. So we've kind of heard in the past that every Board of Adjustment item that's brought before you is a standalone item, and you would evaluate, the next one based on the criteria that they provide for, their request. I
Okay.
would say no.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no questions, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion for approval from Mr. McElroy and a second from Mr. Herzog.
Let's clarify what
Go ahead.
we're approving.
Go ahead, please.
I mean, what,
The true variance is a request for a variance to UDC Section 2198A in order to allow a fence in the front yard that exceeds the maximum height and is constructed of an opaque material. So that is what the true variance is.
That specific one.
okay, that's what I did.
That's what I'm moving to approve.
One more time,
I move to approve BOA 2019-008 as is stated in the application.
okay?
What did I say? 002.
I'll second 002.
Okay. We have a motion for Mr. McElroy and a second for Mr. Herzog. Any questions on the item? If not, I'll entertain a vote.
Aye.
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 And aye. Motion is carried and passed. Thank you very much for everyone. Okay. At this time, we're looking at some announcements by the members. Have you attended any functions or anything, or planning to attend? Mr. McElroy?
I am not.
Mr. Herzog?
Yes, sir. Just bring you up to date on Committee of Committees Advisory Board. We got a copy of the report that was discussed at the meetings in your package. And just one thing to let you know, in case we don't meet again in the near future, come April 1st is the census. So talk up everybody and tell everybody to be sure and identify where you're living on April 1st of 2020. And that's one of the things that the committee has been tasked with to do, and we're pushing it and promoting it. That's all I have.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay, just real quick, some of the things that were really exciting this week, and especially the Balloon Fest that was over here right outside of Rotama Park, and I understand one of the balloons actually landed someplace nearby here in one of the parks over here. So it evidently was really very good, very well attended. And just to let you know, let's see, there was a Casa Casino night at the Blue Bonnet, which was held about a week and a half ago. It was very good, too, very successful. And the last thing, just to let you know, there will be popcorn with the cops at Santico's coming up. So those of you that are interested for your kids to get some nice popcorn, you're welcome to come. Anyone else? No? Okay. Staff, your turn.
So recently, this past weekend, we also did the Schertz trunk or treat. Planning and Community Development had a trunk out there. We decorated one of the inspections truck. We were all Pac-Man, ghosts, and fruit, and everybody seemed to really enjoy us. They knew what we were, so that was good. The little kids knew what Pac-Man was. But overall, I think it was a really well-attended event, so yeah, that's it.
All right. Very good.
And if you'd like to see those costumes, come by on Thursday because staff is dressing up in their costumes on Thursday.
All right. All right, will do. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to say thank you again for staff for the presentation that you have made. I really appreciate it. And if there is, I'm sorry, Mr. Herzog.
Question, how are we going to be getting our agendas and everything in the future?
Yes.
And there's a number of them over at the police station.
And those are all old ones that people didn't pick up. So moving forward, starting with this agenda, and I'm sorry, I thought we had sent out some information on it, we are going paperless. So in your email that you got confirming that we were having a meeting, there was a link to the city's website where you can click that link and it'll pull up the full agenda with the full packet. And I can also show you all on the website if you don't know where to go to get that as well. And then same thing where you have your iPads in front of you tonight for every Board of Adjustment meeting moving forward. Staff will set that iPad up for you, pull the agenda up. So during the meeting you can zoom in at the items, scroll through the agenda, all of that. But moving forward, no paper packets.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Anybody move to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll get a motion to adjourn from Mr. Herzog. Second from Mr.
Second that.
McElroy. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Do I hear a no someplace? No, I'm sorry. All right. Thank you all again for coming. We really appreciate it. And again, staff, thank you.